Hey everyone, Chris Hansen here on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I appreciate it very much. We're going to continue this evening on our investigation of Onision, who's a YouTube streamer who has been accused of being a predator, of seducing, control, and coercion, almost cult-like tactics involving many female victims. And it's something that we talked to a young woman named Sarah about last week, a fellow Repsion who's investigated the matter, and Blair White the week before. And I think it's one of those stories, just like with the Epstein case and R. Kelly and some of the others, that we need to stay on top of, so we will. Tonight we have a very important guest, Shiloh, who will join us shortly. I just want to say a couple things about YouTube in general, and specifically relating to Have a Seat with Chris Hansen and our previous YouTube channel. We still have it, but we do this show here now called Hansen versus Brett. Can't say the word because apparently it's one of the banned words by YouTube. If you've been following all this, YouTube apparently now has a giant list of words, and if you use too many of them on your YouTube channel, you'll be sanctioned, meaning you're demonetized, and many YouTubers depend on those ad dollars to put their shows on. Us, not so much. We're going to do this regardless, but it points out and raises some questions that I can't answer, and maybe some of you guys out there can, but I've reached out to the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, asking for an interview on why would alleged predators be allowed to still be on YouTube doing their shows, coaxing all kinds of people into doing who knows what, where a channel like Have a Seat with Chris Hansen can't get monetized and is sanctioned for what? This last letter we got from YouTube says that we were reusing content. The only thing on this channel is this show, which is new, unique, and exclusive to this channel every Wednesday night. And then it said something later about other channels reusing content, this content, rebroadcasting our show. Well, I have no control over that. So I think at some point, you all need to reach out to YouTube and start asking these questions. Why are legitimate content creators on YouTube being sanctioned for using words as run-of-the-mill as predator, the 42nd president, the state of Alabama, all amongst hundreds of words that are loaded somehow into an algorithm in YouTube. And if you use too many of them, they sanction you. Doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to stop ranting about that, but you guys do as you see fit by asking these questions of YouTube, and I'm going to continue to ask those questions as well, because at some point, why are we on YouTube? I could take this show to Hansen versus Predator, the website, and y'all can watch it there. And it's a subscription website, but I'll slash the price down to pennies a month. I don't care. I just want to do what's right. My whole goal here, and it has been for 38 years now as a reporter, is to get inside the mind of a criminal, understand how a predator thinks and works, hear the voice of the victim, and perhaps, just perhaps, prevent other people from becoming victims. And that's what this is all about. So enough said with that. It is my distinct pleasure to have Canadian pop star Shiloh with us, who has had a number of hits over the years, started in the business very young, double platinum, great career, and then she met Onision. And she is here tonight to talk to us and tell us her, what is in some cases harrowing, very disturbing story about how she got involved with Onision, how he groomed her, coerced her, controlled her, took advantage of her, and in the opinion of many, robbed her of part of her very promising career. She's back on track now, and she's got a new song that's just dropped, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Shiloh, thanks for being on the show with us tonight. We have Shiloh there. All right, let's stick with Shiloh. Shiloh, thanks for being here.
I was thinking about it, as you could see.
Well, excellent. I appreciate that. How you doing tonight?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. So let's go back towards the beginning. How did Onision even get on your radar in the first place?
I mean, I was in that like kind of upswing era of YouTube. So I started watching a lot of vloggers at that time, and I'd come across some of his stuff.
And you were performing this time. You were already a household name in Canada and really throughout North America in some ways.
On 3 tours at that point.
And how old were you at this time?
16.
16.
Yeah.
So you're a performer, you're a hot ticket, and you come across Onision how?
I saw a couple of his videos on his Speaks channel, and I remember being in a really interesting situation with a teenage boyfriend at the time, and I wanted advice on it. So I had contacted him, and it was just by email, and I didn't think I'd get a response or anything like that, but I explained the situation between me and that boy, and I got an email back right away.
And what appealed to you about that? It wasn't like you were some kid in the middle of Saskatchewan someplace with no social life or no popularity of your own. You were a star, and yet you still were somehow struck by the fact that Onision got back to you?
I wasn't so much struck as I thought, like, oh, this person will get it. Like, this person's on like the same kind of like level as me in the world right now. And knowing that, I guess kind of like I felt at that time kind of outside because I wasn't going to school or anything like that. So I didn't have like a regular friend base. So I would seek out friendships within my own community. And so I kind of saw him as somebody that was in my community. And so when he reached back out to me, I was like, wow. But at the same time, I was kind of like, maybe this could really be with.
How did the friendship develop?
The first email he sent back to me stated, like after the whole explanation of me and that boy, he had said to me, you know, there's over 7 billion people in the world. You don't know how you're going to love somebody in the future. And just to me, like, seemed so wise and knowing at that time. And so I got really kind of attached to looking for advice from him.
And you continued this communication online for how long till you actually met him?
Yeah, for about 8 or 9 months. It was between like January and December of 2011. And we ended up talking about like pretty much all day, all of the waking hours. It was starting to bother my mother a lot. It took me away from my work a lot. Yeah, we talked about everything. He made me feel good about myself, you know, would give me advice on even what to wear, like kind of like a gay best friend would. You know, like, but I didn't see it as strange or anything at the time.
So it continued. You were comfortable with it. Did he start to make advances that were more than just friendship and advice?
At the time, I didn't really think so. But he was really kind of constantly pushing me to come out and see him and Sky. And now she was, I had seen that somebody thought that maybe it was a secret that me and him were talking during that time, but Sky was in the background a lot of the time. And I think the only person at the time actually that noticed what was going on was my mother and probably Sky. I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I got kind of sidetracked.
No, not a problem at all. You're right on track. When did it become more than just a conversation, right, advice, an online meeting of the minds between people who are, you know, in the public eye, so to speak, and turn into something that was, in his eyes, romantic or wanting to get interpersonal?
There was nothing that really stuck out to me before he kind of abruptly called me and told me that he was divorcing Sky for me. Before that moment, there was really just stuff that I look back on now as being more than just friendship. Like, I was okay with showing, like, I was okay with sitting in front of the camera in my bra or something like that because he had made it okay.
Did he ask you to do this, or was it just more, hey, I'm getting dressed or I'm comfortable and this is what I'm doing right now? And
yeah, it was just kind of I was comfortable, and that he didn't make it an issue. And so it was never really a thing. Nothing was ever outright until he told me that he had fallen in love with me.
he had fallen in love with you based upon your online conversations and your texting and whatnot. And now you say Sky, that was his wife partner before Kai?
This was his wife before I was his girlfriend, and after me came Kai.
Okay. Yeah. Sky, you, Kai.
Sky, Shy, Kai.
Sky, Shy.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does he tell you about his marriage to Sky?
Well, I was in PA at the time in a hotel. And
Pennsylvania.
we were communicating through the computer system that they had there at the time.
And you were performing in Pennsylvania?
I was doing kind of like a fitness thing at the time. So I was getting ready to perform.
Got it.
I was about to go on my 4th tour. I had just signed internationally, and I was getting ready to release another album.
And you were 16, 17?
I was 16 when we met, but I was 17 when we met in person.
Got it.
So I was 17 at the time of being in PA. He called me. We talked a couple of days as soon as I got there, and nothing seemed wrong. And nothing really seemed wrong between him and Sky to me at all. So when he told me, and he told me straight out, Sky wasn't there. It was really solemn. And he just kind of held up these papers. And he was like, these are divorce papers. And Sky signed them.
Divorce papers.
Yeah. And I'm divorcing Sky. And then he went on to explain that it was because he had fallen in love with me.
And did you, at the age of 17, believe him at that point?
Yeah, I was shocked because I was a fan of theirs as well. So I kind of saw them fall out in my head as a fan. I was like, well, what the F? What is this about? And but then it kind of turned into, wow, this man must really love me, to be doing something like that. And I had never had any real relationship experience. Me and the boyfriend that I had before him were online. And so this seemed so fairy tale.
And how old was he at the time?
I believe he was 26 or 27 at the time.
26, 27. So he's a good 10 years older than you. And that's a big 10 years when you're talking about 17 to 26 or 27. He shows up at this hotel room in Pennsylvania. Were you traveling with your mom, or did you have a chaperone, or what was the situation?
I had my mom with me. Unfortunately, during the trip, my mom had to go get surgery. And there was supposed to be somebody with me at the time, and there wasn't. And so I was staying in the hotel by myself. He made his way to PA. Before he made his way there, he had explained to me that we could get in a lot of trouble.
Into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he explained to me we could get in a lot of trouble, and that he had to check the state laws before he came.
Because of your age?
Because he knew we were going to sleep together, and we had spoken about that. And so when he did his research, he informed me that the legal age in Pennsylvania at the time was 16. 16.
So yeah. He would not be breaking the law if, in fact, the two of you slept together and had relations.
Right. And I had just freshly turned 17. And so he made his way to PA. When he got there, he got his own hotel room. I can't remember why. I think it had to do with my mom. But good for her. But yeah, he stayed in a different hotel room. He got the hotel to let me into his room. And when he showed up, he started kissing me immediately. And we slept together within 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, of him showing up. I opened up the door and he kissed me right away and, started touching me and stuff like that. And he put me on the bed within, I had no even time to just say, oh my gosh, how was your trip? Are you jet lagged. Anything? No time.
And he had come in from Washington State.
Yes, Seattle.
Did this take you aback? Did you expect this to happen so quickly? So
it took me back, but I went with it. I was feeling so many things at that point in time that I can't say that I wasn't scared. I was nervous, but not like, I think that I just thought that it was okay and that this was what was going to happen anyways.
So you were okay with it, albeit somewhat confused and emotional.
I was confused and emotional, but it was consensual.
And how did the relationship progress after this? Obviously, your mother had no idea.
Oh, she found out. No, she found out. So while we were there, he actually had the police called while we were there. Because
your mother had the police called. There was an incident at
my
the
mother actually didn't. It was the hotel.
The hotel did.
Yeah. So
what led to this whole police activity?
He had camera equipment in the room. And
Wait. He shows up after this online relationship. You become intimate, and he has camera equipment.
Yeah. He recorded everything that he did. He vlogged.
He recorded your intimacy.
No, that was never at that time. But that's what they thought. So that's why the police were called. His computer was checked for child pictures.
Pornography.
Yes. And then they left because there was nothing. They made me go home back to Canada. And they made him go home back to Seattle.
What did he videotape, if anything, during that trip, during that visit?
Vlogs. This is the first time anybody ever heard my voice, because I was in the background on his way when he crashed his car into a deer. Then he bought a ticket and he showed up on a plane. But he was vlogging that entire time. There wasn't a moment that man didn't have his camera equipment around.
And he was a pretty famous guy. Well, still is a famous guy in terms of streaming and being a YouTuber and all that. How did you leave it with him when he parted ways with you?
It was all very solemn, very sad. Oh, boo-hoo, we're going to be away from each other, all of those things. But he assured me that he was going to get to Toronto as soon as possible. And he did.
Which is where you were living at the time. Now, was he actually divorced, or what was the situation with these papers?
You know what? This is all very new for me, this part, because Sky and I had not been in contact, obviously, throughout this whole time up until recently. And watching everything that she's posted, that those were bogus papers, as far as I know right now. But at the time, I had thought that they were legitimate. I didn't know.
So he goes back to Washington State. You go back to Toronto. Yeah. You go back to your career. He goes back to his blogging, YouTubing career. When do you see him again?
So December 2011 is when we were in PA. He was with me in Toronto by January.
And he was living in Toronto?
Yep, he got an apartment. We were living right on Yonge Street, right in Toronto.
Right in the thick of it.
Right in the heart of Toronto.
And you were living together? And how was your mom with this?
Unfortunately, at this time, because I had the career that I had, I was in a lot more control than I should have been able to be in. And we went through a very bad fallout. I had told her that I didn't want to speak to her because I thought she was responsible for calling the police in PA. And also, he had really kind of pushed me into not speaking to her anymore because of how she didn't approve of what was going on. And so I told her to leave. I'll never not regret that. But I told her to leave, and my management at the time got me an apartment that was a studio in Toronto. I, to be honest, never stayed at it. I was with Greg the entire time.
So you were making pretty good money as a kid.
Oh yes, I was in a position of paying all of our bills at the time.
Was Greg making any money at all? Meaning Onision and Greg?
Oh yeah.
So the two of you together, you were comfortable.
Well, I mean, it's a different story, but at the time I didn't have the same type of access to my money as I would now. I wasn't under a very good situation in my career when it came to management and such. But between the two of us, we were worth a lot, yes.
When did the relationship go from, okay, this is cool, I'm into him, to he's controlling me, he's manipulating me, he's coercing me?
So before this, I had dealt with a boyfriend that had schizophrenia. And so some of the things that happened with Greg, it didn't take me back as much as I feel like it should have. But the first incident, which was in Toronto, between January and April, I found boudoir photos of his ex-wife's sister.
You found what kind of photos now?
Pornography.
Pornography of his ex-wife's sister.
Yes, I just prefer to call it boudoir because it was very much so classy. But she had those, was doing that privately at the time, and he had those photos on his computer. I had found them. He confessed to me that this was something that he masturbated to. And I broke down, and then he, coddled me and made it better and all of these things, and started to show me all of the pornography that he watches. And the first pornography that he ever showed me was an anime character getting raped. And then a lot of...
This is an anime cartoon character essentially being raped, and he had that on his computer?
He searched it, but he knew what to search. And then he showed me some other pornography that was cartoon-based. And the girls were very flat-chested, very small, very young-looking. And I was not okay with this, but he just explained to me that it had nothing to do with me, and it was just something that guys do, and being 17, I'm like, okay, I guess. So I went with it.
How did your personal relationship, your physical relationship with him intensify during this time?
It was all the time. It was from the very beginning. We had sex about 8 times a day sometimes. I was getting frequent UTIs and in pain a lot. I thought that was normal too. This was my first sex life per se. So I just thought, this is what's normal. This is how adults do things. He also had somehow found the time to masturbate in between those times, which was really confusing. I do believe that he's a sex addict, to be honest.
Was this about love, lust, or was it about control?
I think both. Not love, but definitely lust and control. I don't think he has a very good meter of controlling himself around a person.
Did he hurt you?
He was very aggressive, and like, I'm not one to kink shame at all. But at that time and at that age, how hard he was pulling my hair back, I could not breathe. Calling me the B word, calling me a slut, or while we were having sex. Very aggressive, very aggressive.
Looking back, was there anything romantic at all about this, or was it him just using you in what can be only termed as a violent way?
I don't think that he has those feelings. I think I did for me, you know, where I was and being convinced that he was the person that I was supposed to be with and such. I was giving real compassion. But what he was, no. I'm you know, I'm 26 now, and I know I'm not very old, but I have been in stable relationships at this point, and there's nothing normal about what he was doing. You know, there was no, hey, sweetie, can we sit down and talk about what you like and what I like? It was, this is what he does, and you go with it.
Did he ask you, or did he try to derail your career?
He brought me as far away from it as he could.
In what way? How did he do this?
Well, we moved to Seattle first. We moved to Seattle the day before I turned 18. We were in the hotel waiting. Morning I turned 18, we were off to Seattle. And so that took me away from all of my network, really. As much as I can find my network in Seattle or Los Angeles or New York or wherever I am, it took me away from my management, my record label, my agents, everything, my security.
Did he try to isolate you?
Yeah, my phone wasn't my phone anymore. It was the phone that he got me. Me and my mom really weren't allowed to talk on the phone in front of him, or else I'd have to deal with him saying that it was weird, or that we were way too close. And I went on 2 writing trips at that time. One of them he came along on, and one of them he didn't. And he made those hard the entire time. He made those difficult. Slowly,
what did he do on those trips, and what were you supposed to be doing on those trips?
I was writing for other people at that time, whilst also doing my own project. So essentially ghostwriting, I guess. He just sexualized everything.
Was there anything about this relationship where you did things other than bow to his sexual wishes? Did you guys go to movies? Did you go on regular dates? Was there conversation? Did he hang out in the studio while you sang or wrote music and performed? Did he encourage you to be the best you could be in your profession?
He encouraged me to do a lot of YouTube videos with him. But
it was all about promoting Onision.
Yeah, essentially. I can't say that he was ever like, stop doing music, but he made it so that I couldn't. So I guess that's a bigger win. He gave me not much of a choice. Eventually I was not able to contact my management. I got dropped from my management.
I'm guessing that leads me to my next question. At some point, the management's going to say, "We're heads not in the game here."
Yeah, she's not.
Obviously, there's infatuation or control or something. We try to get her attention. We can't. We're washing our hands of Shiloh. Is that what happened?
Essentially. But I mean, it was a blessing in disguise, but that's a whole other story. But it was essentially that they dropped off from me because I wasn't providing. You know, I wasn't giving out any work at all.
So you're what, 18, and suddenly you're washed up?
Yeah, I went from making thousands in my 3-month quarter that would come out to seeing it go to like $300.
You would tour. You were in concerts with other artists.
I was on the radio.
You're on the radio. You had record deals.
Yeah.
Now you're just with Onision.
Then I was just with him at his house, recording with him all the time, everything. And I mean, that house, I'm not sure if anybody's aware of this, but when I got there, there was nothing but a couch in the living room and a green screen with a bunch of lighting. The heating was rarely turned on. The kitchen was always an absolute disaster from the videos that he would do with food and such like that. There was a bed on the floor for a bedroom with a TV in there, and gaming systems. And then his office was like decked out with all of the cool stuff that he liked.
There was a point when he shaved your head.
Yes.
How did that come about?
At first, we did a joke video, and I acted like they shaved my head while I was sleeping. I clearly wasn't sleeping. I slumped out of the car, but I wanted to look like Skrillex, so we went to go shave half of it, and we made it a joke video with Nathan Barnett at the time. And then shortly after that, when we were in LA when that happened, when we went back, he was having sex with me, and he told me, I want you to shave your head.
In the middle of this intimate moment.
In the middle of sex, yeah. And so he took me off into the bathroom, and he shaved my head in the tub, and then continued to have sex with me.
That seems controlling, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and then he made me do a lot of videos. Well, he tried. I think I only got one of them out. He made me do a lot of videos as bald characters, like The Last Airbender. He wanted me to do Lex Luthor. He exploited it.
It sounds like he got off on having you essentially end your career while he used you to promote his.
Oh, the ultimate submission. I gave him everything.
I mean, your singing is done, and you end up being, a shaved head sidekick.
Yeah,
right.
Little psycho sidekick. That's definitely how it ended up being.
You had a medical seizure at one point during your relationship with him. Describe that and tell our people what he did while this was going on.
There was a point in time in which we were having sex, and afterwards he had taken me into the shower, and can't remember how it came about, but he had told me that he was into small-bodied Asian women, and that wasn't me, and that he couldn't pick me up while we were being intimate, so I had to lose weight, that I was clinically obese for my height. I'm 5 foot, and I think I was like 135 pounds. And so I had never felt that way before. And he left me crying, hyperventilating, actually, because I was very distraught. In the shower, he left me there. And things started to get really crazy. So, like, I felt all of these tingles in my face, and I'm really hyperventilating, and then I just kind of conked out in there. Now, in between the time of how I got from there to beside his desk, I'm not entirely sure. But that was a grand mal seizure from what I know. And it took memory from me. I woke up not knowing who he was. I had lost a good 3 years, and I've been having seizures ever since, to be really honest with you.
And did I get this right that he videoed the seizure?
He did.
And what did he do with it?
He put it on YouTube.
He put it on YouTube.
Yeah, he put it on YouTube. I guess asking people for advice. I remember being in the very hazy states afterwards, and him asking me, is this okay if I put it online so we could help people with this?
Help people?
Yeah.
Who was he actually helping when he did
I'm
that?
not quite sure. Himself, I think. But I went with it.
How bad did it get in the time you lived with him?
When I explain it to other people, it's like a horror movie to them. I've explained it to therapists and actually gone back to them and had them say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I had to Google you because I didn't believe this." It got to a point where I was being locked outside of the bedroom or the bathroom while he was masturbating. I'd be crying next to him in bed at night, and he would snap at me and lock me outside the bedroom to sleep in the hallway. A lot of breaking up and getting back together while I'm in the house and like kind of playing with if I know if he cares about me or not. There's a lot. So I feel my brain kind of going through all the files of what happened there. Everything was recorded.
Everything.
Everything. And if something happened between us, his fans would come after me even while we were together. There was times when I would take off out of the house because I wanted out so bad. And I wouldn't get very far, to be honest. I had no resources to really help me.
Why didn't you just leave, Shiloh? You had some money, right? Or was it all gone at this point?
I kept thinking, my loyalty is really strong. And I kept thinking, what if he's just not himself right now? And, you know, what if I just don't understand? Or what if I'm the one that is in the wrong? What if this is my fault? Because everything was turned around to be a problem with me. I was the cause for everything. There was no, Greg did something wrong. And so I believe I stayed because I thought I loved him.
How long did this go on, Shiloh?
2 years.
2 years. And what toll did those 2 years take on your life?
I'm pretty agoraphobic at this point. Getting over that. I not only took a mental toll, but there was no way of me getting back on the internet or safely without being completely attacked after everything.
So wait a minute. So I understand this, and so everybody watching understands. You were the one victimized here, yet to Onision's followers, you were the bad guy. You were attacked.
Oh, he smeared me as much as he possibly could. There was it was the first breakup. He smeared me a little bit and then brought me back. And then the last breakup, he went in. But there's a lot in between that. He sent a good bit of people after me. I woke up the next morning from him sending out his like final goodbye to me online. And I had about 1,500 that I got through. And I'd say about 80% of those were telling me to kill myself. And that
kill yourself. These are 1,500 reaches, contacts on social media telling you many of them to kill yourself.
And that's before I shut the account down. I can't even imagine what happened over the last 10 years.
Did you ever get pregnant during this relationship?
I did.
And what happened?
I had gotten pregnant while we were in Seattle. This was after the first breakup. And I wanted a natural birth. So we went to a midwife, blood tests done, ultrasound done. Everything was looking good. Went home, went in for our next checkup, and there was no heartbeat. And so, and I mean, in between that time, I was under a lot of stress. I was crying every night, you know, dealing with sleeping in the hallway.
So the abuse did not stop, even though Onision, Greg, knew you were pregnant with his child?
No. It was almost worse.
Was he in favor of having the baby, or did he try to get you to terminate the
I
pregnancy?
wanted it so bad. The first thing he ever said to me when he met me in that hotel room in PA was, "I can't wait to get you pregnant." He was for it. There was never a question otherwise. He wanted it. I don't think I really had much of a choice there, because there wasn't ever really a discussion. It was just like, "Oh my God, we're having a baby. Wow, let's go to the hospital."
Yet he treated you poorly after this.
Yeah. So we get that ultrasound. No heartbeat comes back. He made a video, obviously, announcing it to everybody. Now, when the midwife, I'm still 18 at this point. So when the midwife sent me home, she says, "I'm going to follow up with you and all your blood tests and everything. We're going to make sure you're all right. If you see anything pass, that's a good thing. That means your body is doing this naturally. Be prepared."
Meaning a miscarriage.
Yes. Nothing passed. I didn't bleed. There was no show of anything. I didn't really understand what this meant.
You're 18 at the time.
Yeah. She got back to me and told me that if I didn't get help immediately, that this was going to be really bad. And I was at this point at what would normally be 14 weeks to 16 weeks approximate gestation, when the baby had actually died at 5 weeks. And so she informed me that I could go extremely septic if I didn't get help. I Googled sepsis, or I Googled septic infections, or I can't remember what I Googled, but it came up as sepsis for me. So Greg released a video called "Shiloh Has Sepsis." I went off to Canada.
Did you ever think one moment to take you to the emergency room or to the hospital instead of making a video?
No, he straight up told me he wasn't going to pay for the health care.
He wasn't going to pay for the health care?
No. He was
so you're in danger.
For the whole pregnancy and the $5,000 a month that it would cost to have a midwife, but not to have an emergency team.
So he wanted you to pay for that?
I didn't have any money. I was only making the money from the YouTube channel that I started with him.
So he's all about making the video about this miscarriage and your sepsis.
Yeah.
But didn't take you to the hospital to deal with it.
No.
What kind of a person does that, Shiloh?
Same person that doesn't take you to the hospital when you're having a grand mal seizure on their floor, but instead
makes a video and puts it on YouTube.
Yeah.
What's the single worst thing he did to you?
Single worst? Meet me.
From the get-go.
Yeah, seriously, all of it. The body shaming. The body shaming is probably what stuck with me the most.
What does it say about his ability to manipulate when he can do this to someone who actually has a life, has a career, has success, has fame, has fortune, and yet he can tear you down to the point where you're sleeping in a dingy hallway of a Washington State house, on the floor, pregnant, cold, and dejected?
Yeah. Well, he masturbates in the other room and I can hear it.
On top of it all.
Yeah.
How does that happen? What is it? I mean, is he a master manipulator? Is he a predator? Is he a criminal? Is he how do you characterize this guy?
I was talking about this earlier today, and there's a reason that famous people are famous. They have a way of carrying themselves and moving themselves that people are drawn to. Unfortunately, I don't think he's really that talented. So he has a hard time keeping up his face. I especially know this having had talked to Sarah now myself, and the differences between who he was then and who he is now. He still pulls the same stuff, but he's extremely cold in comparison on a lot of things to when he was with me.
Which begs the question, what makes him this way? Was he abused as a kid? Was he victimized in some way? Does he just have no conscience or soul? What's behind
He
this?
tried to explain to me that nobody ever really liked him, and he spent a lot of time by himself playing video games on his own and all of these things. He never really mentioned any sort of abuse. I met his mother, and his mother seemed to, be a nice person.
How does he end up this way?
That's what I'm saying. I'm really not sure. He didn't grow up with a father, but I know a lot of people that have not grown up with fathers, and
Is your father on the scene, by the way?
yes.
What does he make of all this?
When he was alive,
I'm sorry that he died.
that is okay. When he was around, he, for lack of a better term, wanted to put an end to it.
To the relationship or to Onision?
Greg, Onision. He wanted so very badly. When he came out and said, "Oh, Shiloh's sending the Canadian mafia after me," no, man, my dad and a couple of his boys really wanted to come down and screw with your life. And I mean, I can say that now that he's not around. Greg would not have been around if I had not stopped that.
Your dad was so upset at the way Greg Onision was treating you that he and his posse were going to come get him.
He was ready to go to jail for it.
Canadian justice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was raring and ready to go, and you put a stop to it.
Oh yeah, there was a time where I was at a rehearsal with Greg, and my father was there, and my father had taken him into the back room, and I had just come in as he said, "If you don't disappear, I'm gonna make you disappear." And Greg just said, "I guess I'm gonna have to die then." And I walked in. I didn't talk to my father for about a year after that.
You broke up with Greg Onision once. How long did you break up the first time?
I actually never broke up with him. He broke up with me.
He broke up with you?
Yeah.
And what reason did he give for that breakup?
First time when we broke up was July 2011. This was after being bald and having a seizure and all of that stuff. And the first reason was definitely the same as the last reason. He couldn't take my constant crying. He couldn't take how possessive I was over,
how possessive he was, and he's controlling?
I was apparently over him because I didn't want him to, I wanted him to want me, not a whole bunch of other women. And I didn't think that was that much to ask for. But he broke up with me in July, and then got a girlfriend right away. I found out over Facebook.
And how did he get you back, or how did you get back in that relationship with him after that?
He had called me one night, and I was already kind of on my way to forgetting about him.
You had moved to Canada from Washington State? Yeah.
My mom had come and picked me up because he had left me in a mental ward at that point.
So you're shot mentally at this point, wiped out. You go to a psychiatric facility, or a psychiatric facility in a medical facility, and your mom comes to get this shell of a young woman.
Yeah. I was
takes you back to Canada.
Yeah. I went there because he called the police on me for banging outside of his door and having enough of being locked out. And so they took me there. A lady gave me a voice and said she didn't feel right about the situation, so let me call my mom. My mom came and got me. I was out at their care. I was in British Columbia at the time when he got a new girlfriend, and shortly after breaking it off with her, I suppose, he called me crying, I miss you. I made such a big mistake. I love you so much. I'm so
He loves you, but he ditches you in a psychiatric facility And moments later, he's found another girlfriend from Facebook.
Right.
And now you're gone and he wants you back.
Yeah. And so.
And you come back to this?
Yeah, I did. I went to, so during this time that he sent me to that mental facility, and I went home, he had taken himself to Los Angeles, and he was there. I thought, well, maybe he saw what it was like being with somebody else and realized how much he loved me, you know? And I was also kind of wanting to get out of the city that I was in, because I mean, I was just tagging along with some family, so it wasn't exactly somewhere that I wanted to be at the time. So as a young person, I wanted to get back out of my mom's house, you know, and so I did. And I went back down there, and within a couple days, he got me to pick out my own engagement ring, paid for it. We made a video where I revealed the engagement ring and continued the relationship, and badmouthed the girlfriend that he had in between, which was not good.
Do you think all this is just one big storyline for him? Just a way to create drama to keep him relevant in the YouTube world?
I don't even know if he plans it, but he's not in reality. He lives in a place where none of this stuff is real and everything is some sort of long, convoluted skit.
So you go back to him, and how long does that last?
Not long, couple months. September, lost the cap of my water. September, he broke up with me again. And that was the final time after me getting pregnant. Me being pregnant. I'm getting my timelines right here. Yeah, I am.
So you leave.
With me, there's so much.
I know. It's listen, and by the way, this isn't the only time you and I'll talk about this on this show. You leave finally for good. What is the incident, if there was one, that makes you finally say, I'm out of here, I gotta go, there's more to life than this nonsense?
I didn't have one. It was actually my mom that saved me when I came back and I was pregnant and, well, with a past child. When I was in the hospital and going through labor and having to have all these things done, my mom took my passport.
Physically took it away from you?
Yeah, she took it out of my bag, and I swear to gosh, I still remember looking in her eyes and going, do you know where my passport is? And she just, no, sweetie, no idea. And every time, you know, I had the opportunity to go get a passport, she'd make sure that I was stationary where I was, or that I couldn't get a ride, or whatever might happen, that she avoided the situation. Greg had even sent me money at the time to get a new passport. And
if your mother had not taken you out of this relationship, what would have happened to you?
I think I would have committed suicide in his house.
And for him, what would that have meant?
I don't know.
Another chapter on YouTube.
Yeah. My girlfriend committed suicide in my house.
So you leave, you're gone. Are you ever tempted to go back after this point?
I met somebody actually, and because I just want to say quickly that being in an abusive situation like this, for me, for Billy, for even Sky, even though she was his first wife and, you know, she wasn't victimized per se, she dealt with his shit. She knew exactly, you know, what it was like to deal with somebody like that.
Do you talk to Sky today? Are you in contact with her at all?
Inadvertently, yes. We bow our heads when we pass, type of thing, you know. But we don't have conversations. But there is a very, very strong mutual respect there.
So you leave, you meet somebody else. This is a healthy relationship, I take it.
Sorry, what I was going to say is that being in an abusive situation like this, you really do think that that love is real. But as soon as your mind gets distracted, it's nothing.
You snap out of it.
Yeah, you really do. And you start to see things pretty clearly, pretty quickly.
Did he try to get you to go back to them, Greg, Onision?
Oh, for a long time. But as soon as he found out that I was with somebody else, he did all sorts of stuff. He would call me multiple times a day just to play his videos, the audio of his videos over the phone. Email me constantly, calling me a liar, a cheater.
A liar and cheater.
Yeah.
Because you got out of that abusive relationship and got into a healthy one, you were a liar and a cheater.
Yeah, but also when I got back to Canada, 3 days after I got there, just before I went into the hospital, he broke up with me. So we were not together when I met this new person. He had already let me go in his eyes. So I let go too.
What did he take from you?
Dignity. Not dignity that I haven't gotten back, but dignity, relationships. It's been very hard to make friends and have them not Google your name and see all of that shit and then have a whole bunch of questions as to, well, what kind of person are you? And it ruined relationships, friendships.
Did people look at you for a while and say you were damaged goods?
Yeah. Actually, it's really shocking that you say that because I had an ex-boyfriend.
I mean, I don't mean to say it like it's reality, but to me, some people are
I was even seen like that in the music industry. People did not work with me as much. I was seen as very crazy. Because every meltdown I had in my teenage years that was, memorable, that I look back and think, wow, that was really something I'll never forget, was recorded and was put up. And so people got to see the side that everybody else keeps away from everybody and they cry alone in their bathroom or something like that. It was all publicized.
Do you still get flashbacks?
Yeah. It's when I thought what flashbacks might be like, I didn't expect it because I've only recently really come to terms with what's happened and how it's affected my life and my ability to control my emotions. I'm a very anxious person now. I'm very scared to even be seen or go outside or, it really took me back to a place where I couldn't deal with anything. Like I still have moments where I'm just crying and shaking and sitting and my boyfriend has to use all of his resources to try to bring me back to a safe place where I don't feel like I'm being victimized in some sort of way.
When was the last time Greg Onision reached out to you? When was the last time you actually spoke or you heard from him?
I believe that he has tried to reach out to me in the last couple of years, but that was something I only heard about and I don't have any of those accounts anymore. So I would say the end of 2012. 2013.
Shiloh, I'm watching the comments come across here, and they echo in many ways how I feel right now, which is I'm brokenhearted for you. I've got kids, and to see somebody's teenage years stolen from them in a way, when it's challenging enough to live your life in the spotlight of a performing career, it just is. There's no better way to put it than heartbreaking. But it wants me to ask you, that feeling wants me to ask you, what advice do you give to every 16, 17, 18-year-old girl out there who is on social media, who is on YouTube, who is on, all these different platforms, exposed to guys like Onision and Greg? What do you tell girls that age? What does 26-year-old Shiloh tell 16, 17, 18-year-old Shiloh?
Trust your friends, trust your parents, trust those people that are telling you, I don't know if that's a good situation. Really be careful and mindful. We are living in a time where you can research anything you want on the internet, anything at all. Don't get involved off of those feel-good feelings that somebody is giving you. Whether they're a, online predator or not. When just because somebody is being nice to you and wooing you and making you feel good about yourself and all of these things, you really genuinely need to get to know somebody for real and for a long time, and know your support systems. If you're not so sure yourself, ask somebody. And obviously don't go trampling into places that you shouldn't go. I see a lot of girls talking to, one of them being a family member of mine that is talking to a guy overseas that she's never seen on cam or anything like this. And I'm like, man, I guarantee you he's not 17 like you. Like, you be careful, and we have the resources to tell us that these things happen.
And listen, I'm never going to engage in victim blaming or anything like that. You did nothing wrong here, but
it definitely isn't. It definitely isn't your fault, or anybody's fault for being victimized by somebody like this.
And I think that's important for young women to know, first and foremost. But I guess the other question that is burning here is, what do you do to stop a guy like this, specifically Greg Onision, from doing this to another young woman?
Don't ever let anything stop you from that gut feeling you have that I'm not being treated right now. This is not how things are supposed to be. That little voice in you that says, hey, Shiloh, he's not treating you right. You're crying all the time. This isn't right. That's your way out, and it will always be your way out. Your inner voice will tell you everything. Trust your gut, like your real gut, not the nice feelings that might be sitting on top, but that feeling that makes you feel uncomfortable. I mean, if you're crying about this guy,
All done.
No matter his age, drop it.
Shiloh today. You dropped a new song within the last week or so. Where are you at with your career? Where are you at in your own head? Where are you at in your soul?
I'm ready. I've never been more ready. I have turned around all of my control, I have control over my career now, and my, everything in my life has gotten to a point where I am the leader of my own journey, and I'm ready to embark on not just my musical journey, but in having a platform to talk about stuff like this, and hopefully helping other young girls and other women that have been in the same situation, or to either stop them from being in that situation or help stop them from being in that situation, or help them feel like they're not alone if they've already been through it.
And if you could say anything to Onision, to Greg tonight, right now, right here, what do you say?
Get help. Get help. You're a very, very sociopathic, narcissistic human being. And somewhere, if it's even just a little glimmer that you think that you are wrong, you need to get help. I have no love for you at all, but I believe that everybody is a person, and as horrible as a person as you are, you need to be put into some sort of space that doesn't allow you to speak to young women, and whatever that space may be, whether it be a physical space or a mental space, he needs serious help.
So we didn't talk about this before you appeared here, and if you don't want to get into it, I understand, but I just moments ago received an email from Greg from Onision. Can I share it with you and have you respond?
Yeah, you can.
You okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. I've
You're
heard of
part of the deal going in, so if you're not, I get it.
Oh no, I've had 10 years to sit with this one, and not scared of anything he can say.
So he's watching right now, apparently. We went to him in the very beginning of our reporting on him, and we offered him an opportunity to appear on the show, and he said he would do so, but he wanted $350,000. He then said we should be careful about what people on our show say about him because he might sue our shoe, meaning show, presumably. We explained to him that we don't pay for interviews. We didn't pay you. We don't pay anybody else. Didn't pay Blair White or Repzion or anybody else. So here's his email. A couple of things. One, I was informed you're having Shiloh on your show. I guess right now. I don't know. I don't actually keep up with you guys. I just go off messages on Patreon like this. Anyway, you guys should watch this video. It involves the last thing Shiloh said about me before I cut ties. I cut ties. She had gotten pregnant with another person's baby while still in a relationship with me.
I wasn't in a relationship with him, but I did get pregnant. Shortly after my DNC, it was very easy to get pregnant. So the first person I had sex with, I got pregnant. You have multiple people who have repeatedly publicly lied, been caught for it on your show. At this point, it's pretty clear you are not concerned with journalistic integrity and really just like getting video views. Is he talking about himself?
He's talking about me, talking about him.
I mean, he clearly doesn't watch.
That aside, the reason I'm writing is apparently you indicated that you would have me talking more about it or going on your show. Whatever your message was there, it's a dead end. Okay, so what I was referring to here is in a message I put out on social media earlier today, I said we were going to have you on, and I said we'll have the latest from Onision himself, which I was referring to an email he had sent earlier with a video clip of Sarah, who appeared last week. And in that, Sarah says, and I don't know the context of the video, we reach out to Sarah to clarify, but Sarah says in the video that he posted on his social media that she never had sex, underage sex with either Greg or Kai, which we never said, nor did Sarah. The whole point of this was that he's apparently so careful about watching girls' ages that he doesn't break the law, as you so articulately and emotionally pointed out earlier. He wanted to make sure he researched the laws in Pennsylvania before this all went down and that you're okay. So he's saying that we're making allegations that we didn't make.
Oh, well.
And you go on and say, let me read this and you can respond.
Nobody said anything.
You actually get your facts straight before broadcasting. Well, that's not journalism. That's you being just another tabloid. What happened to Chris? What happened to integrity? This from Onision? This from a guy who's still on YouTube?
That's the biggest
a platform that has sanctioned me and so many others for using words that pop up in some sort of algorithm. Makes sense to you?
I mean, I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of my ears, but up here, everything is, those gears are grinding. I've never been able to understand how, whatever kind of dreamland he's living in, because he speaks on subjects that he doesn't know anything about, in a way that he feels is intelligent. And it really just continuously makes him look like an idiot, for lack of a better term. And it's so in view. Every single thing that he has done is documented.
One last paragraph here.
Oh boy.
Blair White, Repsiana, and Sarah, all shows based around Sarah, proven a total farce. It is your duty to establish this fact. What fact? What world is he living in here? Who does he think he's dealing with?
I mean,
again, we've offered him to come on the show. I'll have him on next week.
When him and I broke up the last time, he had tried to get us on Judge Judy. Judge Judy. He tried to get us on Judge Judy, and they declined it because I was a Canadian citizen. But that's just to show how much of a big joke this is to him. I was in Canada having an emergency DNC of his past baby, and he was busy trying to get us on Judge Judy for it.
All right, Shiloh, listen.
Big sigh.
I can't thank you enough for being with me tonight, going through this. I hope we'll continue the dialogue and you have the energy to do it. I want to tell you that every comment, without exception, has been supportive of you, applauds you for your bravery, applauds you for standing up and speaking your mind about this, your survival, and a lot of well-wishers hoping that your career really continues to be strong and that your creative spirit lives on. And let me tell you one other thing. Not a single comment I've seen in support of Greg Onision tonight.
Well, that says a lot. It says, and I want to say thank you. And also that everybody that has been supportive through all of this, thank you so much. Also, who hasn't, if anybody hasn't, direct your support towards Sarah. And I know that this is coming off of my own story, but this is fresh for her. And everybody has to remember that this is very fresh for her. I've spent 10 years thinking about this. I've come to terms with it, but I've seen some hate towards Sarah, that not in these comments, but support her. She is the most recent victim of this horrible, horrible person. And not that you all haven't been, but go in on that one. Protect Sarah and deplatform predators, man. Where I can't believe he emailed you.
Yeah, tonight.
Well, look at that. Thank you, Chris. Really.
Thank you, dear, for being on. I appreciate it very much. You have a wonderful night. We'll stay in touch. I'll follow up with you. This topic is not going away.
No.
Thank you for being so brave and articulate and being an important part of this this effort.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. We'll be listening. Thank you. I should also say before we part tonight that, you know, anybody out there who has something to add to what Shiloh has said and Sarah and all the others, reach out at hansenversuspredators.com. I want to thank StreamYard for being our sponsor tonight, providing the platform. If you want to get your creative efforts out there and a live broadcast, check it out at StreamYard.com. That's what we use. From everybody here at Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, Vincent, Janice, Gabrielle, thanks for tuning in. Shiloh, thank you. Take care, and we'll talk soon. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you around on the TV and social media between now and then. Take care and have a good night.